There's more than one way to farm. For Joel Salatin, that could be the slogan on a t-shirt. Although he actually has a different slogan that he uses to describe himself, and I think it's actually on a t-shirt. And it's 6 words long, unlike anything I've ever heard before for one person to describe himself. Hi, I'm Dave Price. Now, we will get to Joel's mission statement later on, also how he left his job as a newspaper writer to take up full-time farming, plus how he both inspires and sometimes annoys people in agriculture. But let's begin by meeting Joel in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. First of all, hi, good to talk to you. We appreciate the time. I wonder, as we get to know you a little bit, would you first talk about the region where you live, the Shenandoah Valley? What is that like? I mean, I've never seen it in person. I've seen pictures of it, and you must just stand outside and take in the view every day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Shenandoah Valley, of course, is 80 miles long, 20 miles wide in the western part of Virginia, not to be confused with West Virginia. You know, we fought a war over that. So it's in western Virginia. And because of our elevation, we're in the same horticulture zone as South Dakota. So when you see those hardiness zones, those zone maps for horticulture, you see that dip, that little peninsula that comes, that's the Shenandoah Valley. We're also in a rain shadow. So we only get 31 inches of rain a year. And the combination of elevation and low rainfall is why the Shenandoah Valley became the breadbasket of early America. If you know your history books, you know the Shenandoah Valley, they call it the breadbasket of the Confederacy, you know. And finally, in the fall of 1864, Phil Sheridan and George Custer came through and burned all the wheat fields to basically starve out the South, and that made the war winnable. So you know, Cyrus McCormick invented the reaper, 1837. That's the official start of the Industrial Revolution, about 12 miles from our house. So then, of course, after the Transcontinental Railroad went in, he moved everything to Chicago. International Harvester Company, you know, McCormick, Deering, and all that, all moved to Chicago. So the Shenandoah Valley had the first macadam road in the U.S., because we shipped grain into Philadelphia and Baltimore. There were 100 wagon load trains of grain going from the Shenandoah Valley up to the cities, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia. And our grain was extremely good because we were high and dry. So that made a stressed grain, which made exceptional flour. So, and at one time, literally, Shenandoah Valley had a water-powered grist mill virtually every 5 miles. I mean, they're all over the place. So after the Transcontinental Railroad went in, and you know, by the end of the Civil War, you know, we had eroded. I mean, our farm here, we lost 3 to 5 feet of topsoil over the 150 years of crop growing, and because you know we're not as flat as Iowa, you know, and Iowa has plenty of erosion too. I've seen some 25-foot deep gullies in Iowa. So you know, we had this tremendous erosion, gullies, and so all that grain production moved to the Midwest, and the valley reverted back to basically a livestock region. So we I mean, there's still some grain grown here in the lower fields, but it's mainly livestock. A lot of beef cattle.
What about for you personally?
So you mean our story here?
Yeah. What are you raising?
Oh, okay. So we raise beef, pork, chicken, both meat and eggs, turkey, rabbit, lamb, and duck eggs. So it's a pretty wide.
It's pretty diverse
menagerie of things. Yeah.
Why go that route? Why not make it easier on yourself and just specialize in one?
Well, because nature doesn't work in just one thing. If the price, if the market drops on one, we can increase another one, and if it goes up, we can add that one. But we direct market everything, so we don't wholesale. I mean, we're not in commodities. We don't go to the
Hmm.
sale barn. We direct market everything. In fact, we ship nationwide. We started that in 2019, and so the diversity. Here's the thing in marketing, the hard thing is finding a customer. But
Sure.
once you have a loyal customer, they want to know, well, what else can I get? Can I get, something else? So the hardest part of marketing is finding a customer. Easiest part of marketing is taking an existing happy customer and offering them something else. And so you turn your $100 customer into $1,000 customer. So the diversity is so that we can capture more of that family's grocery bill is a big deal.
Makes sense. All right, I want to throw something at you here, and I'm curious how you're going to answer this. You have, and give me a little latitude on this. So, if you were starting a party, an organization, a movement, whatever the entity is, and you've described yourself as a Christian, libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer, how many people are in that party with you?
Wow, it's a lot bigger now than it used to be. I can
Okay,
tell you that.
okay,
In general, the Maha movement is with me, and
okay.
I'm doing a few things with the Maha movement. In fact, just Monday night I was in D.C. with RFK Jr. So this distrust of the typical consumer with institutions, whether it's government, food regulations, big corporate, Tyson, whatever. It's a very growing thing, and so I would like to view that Christian libertarian environmentalist capitalist lunatic farmer not as an exclusive club, but actually as as a broad base. I mean, very seldom do you put a libertarian and environmentalist in the same thing. Uh, and so, or for example, a capitalist. And so I view that as as broad and inclusive rather than exclusive.
But what does it mean?
Well, what it means is that, so the Christian part, I'm a Christian, but I got tired over the years of speaking at, organic farm conferences, sustainable ag conferences,
Hmm.
and people assumed that since I was an organic farmer, um, I was a liberal. And the environmental movement grew out of a fairly, liberal political perspective. And so I got tired of people assuming I was, for abortion and for the teachers union and, all this stuff and and anti-capital. Uh, and so so the Christian, I put, I just lay that down. Okay, I'm just going to be upfront about it.
Hmm.
And then the Christian libertarian, I'm very much a small governmenter. I think you cannot have successful small business and have a big government. You either have big government and big business or small government and small business, but the two of those don't coexist. And then libertarian environmentalist, yeah, I do think that earthworms are really important. And if we do anything to the soil that hurts earthworms or erodes it, it's not a good thing. Um, Environmentalist capitalist. I'm not a pure capitalist, but I'm a partial capitalist. I believe in the capitalist idea that you need seed money to start businesses, and there's nothing wrong with being profitable. The environmentalists for too long, I think, have hurt themselves by being anti-capital, anti-profit, anti-business, and so I want to bring that to the table. And then the lunatic that came to me one day after the umpteenth phone call I had from a guy, and I get called here by the local conventional farming community, a bioterrorist, typhoid Mary, starvation advocate, because we all know compost can't compete with chemicals. And so after several of these type of phone calls, over a couple of years, I remember getting off with one who was especially, aggressive. And I told Teresa, she was standing here, I said, I can either be frustrated about all this, or I can smile and just embrace it and say, yeah, of course, I'm crazy. I'm a lunatic. And and a lot of people, my friends thought, oh man, that's going to destroy your reputation, your
Uh-huh.
credibility. But you know what? It's become the best thing in the world because if you Google lunatic farmer, there's only one name that comes up in the entire world, and that's me. It's really hard to create a brand that's only one in the whole world. So I'm a lunatic farmer, and we all know that true creativity and innovation come from the lunatic fringe. I mean, there's books about that, right? It doesn't come from the conventional mindset; it comes from the lunatic fringe. And so the lunatic, is a good-natured way to deal with whatever the backlash is from conventional think, and have a smile and enjoy it.
Christian, libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer. I mean, do you have merch? You got to have merch selling that, right? You got a T-shirt with that on there? Merch is what the
Yeah,
kids say, right?
yeah. We certainly do. We have T-shirts. Yeah, oh
Do you
yeah.
really?
Oh, absolutely.
You
Yeah,
got to with that.
we sure do. Yeah.
All right, so I'm interested in a lot of things to ask you about, but one of the things, and I talked about this to
Yeah.
you before we
Dave,
started recording.
sorry. We
Yeah.
even have little T-shirts for little kids that say "Future Lunatic Farmer" on them.
There,
For little kids.
see,
Yeah.
you talked about that diversity. You got to have
Yeah.
a diversity of products offering to
Yeah.
these
That's
families.
right.
You already said that up front.
That's
All right,
right.
so I told you before we started recording that I come to this from the outside, and so I probably bring up a lot of things that might be a little, maybe I'm a lunatic in my own way, I suppose.
Uh-huh.
The one thing that I have tried to figure out is I hear different people use the word sustainable, different people use regenerative, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Regenerative.
Regenerative agriculture. I'll let you say it. I can't even say it for crying out loud. But it
Yeah.
means it's a label for some people and it's a cause for others. So describe what those words mean to you.
So to me, the benchmark of sustainable and regenerative, natural, whatever you want to use,
Yeah.
the litmus test is, do the young people want to get into it?
Mm,
I'm not even going to talk about ecology and all that stuff. I mean, I can,
yeah.
but for me, the number one thing is, do young people want to enter it as a vocation? And so that then puts it not only in, is it a beautiful place? Yeah, I say, is it aesthetically and aromatically, sensually romantic? I mean, that's one thing, but also, is it profitable? Does it, is it a vocation I can be proud of? Is it a lifestyle I can be proud of? So to me, the next generation, and it doesn't have to be, your own kids necessarily. I'm
Hmm.
just saying, it has to be something that attracts the next generation. So one of the greatest joys of my life right now, we do a very formal stewardship and apprenticeship program here. We take 11 stewards. Most people would call them interns, but we don't
Hmm.
use interns. We call them stewards. Um, from May 1 to September 30, we take 11 a year, and then we take usually 3 or 4 apprentices out of that group who want to stay on for another year. And we have 130 people vying for these 11 spots. So uh, so I think I think that if you can have a farming system that is attractive to young people, that's about as good a test as you can have.
And are these locals? Are they coming from all
Oh
over? Who are these
no, they come
people?
from all over the place. We used to take international ones, but once Trump got elected, we've stopped that. They just can't get here. It's just too
Sure.
difficult. And that isn't a slam on Trump. It's the system. It's just become so difficult for them to come in. So we've stopped taking foreign ones, and we never took very many. We only took 1 or 2 a year, if that.
Hmm.
But now they're all American, domestic folks. But yeah,
And
very,
20
very
somethings, 30 somethings, who are these people?
they're all over the map. A lot of them are 18, 19, 20.
Okay.
Many of them are homeschoolers.
Okay.
And then so you kind of have two groups. One is like the 18, 19, 20-year-old. They're wanting to They're not going to go to college. And I don't want to get down a rabbit hole here, but I think in general, college is overrated for vocations that don't require a college education. You can self-teach. I mean, you see this bookshelf behind me. If you read those books, you will know, what you need to know. And rather than paying, $100,000 to have a professor tell you which books to read. So a lot of them are 18, 19, 20. And then there's another healthy group that's 28 to 32. And many of those are white collar. So they're college educated. We've had master's degrees, and they go into a big corporation, and 5 or 6 years in, they're climbing that corporate ladder, and one day they're looking out the window from their Dilbert cubicle, in the big computer room, and suddenly they realize, I'd rather be the guy out there mowing the corporate lawn on that zero turn mower than in here doing what I'm doing. And so it's amazing how many of those we have come as well. Of course, we love them because they've got a little more life experience. They've had a little more, and they bring additional skills to the operation that we don't have.
So they're living with you, working with you, or living next to you, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then they sort of graduate from what you've got set up, and then what?
Well, um, many of them have something to go to from here, whether it's a friend's property, some acquaintance.
Okay.
Some of them have another outfit they want to go to. I can tell you this: every one of them we get requests every day. Every one of them could choose 50 different places to go. Everybody wants one of our apprentice grads. Some of them, a few of them, of course, stay here and add to our team. Of course, they're all young people, so there's a turnover. They get married, they
Sure.
do other things, and so they do that. In fact, next year, August 20 and or 2021, 22, we're hosting the Stockman Grass Farmer Magazine biannual conference here, and next year's theme is "I was 20 years old, no land, no money. I'm 30 and farming full time." And
Hmm.
we're featuring eight young people who came through our program. They were 20, no land, no money, and they're now full time farming in their 30s. And they're just fantastic stories. They all have a different path. They went different directions, but some of them own land, some of them don't. Uh, and anyway, we're real excited about that. We think that's going to be a real a killer conference to have an entire 2 days focused on "I was 20, no land, no money, and now I'm full time farming."
I've been astounded by the number of people I've met, younger ones, 20 somethings, 30 somethings, even 40 somethings, who have to work off farm to make a go of it. Now, if they are in a situation where they're married, maybe one works on the farm, one works off
Right.
full time. Of course, they're both working on the farm regardless. But for the folks you're getting through this, are they finding ways to make this a full time, sustainable, economic?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And so the kind of the stipulations are every one of them, they're involved in direct marketing. They're not in the commodity business, so
Okay.
they're developing a brand. They are using portable infrastructure, mobile infrastructure. So if they lose a lease or lose a rent, they can move their farm to another place. If they don't own the land, it's always incremental. Like I say, I'm in my 30s. So this realize many of them, it's taken 15, 16, 17 years, maybe even
Hmm.
20, to get here. But it's incremental. You move up and you make a contact here, you make a contact there, and gradually it comes together so that you can make a full-time living. They're all non-chemical, so they don't have that cost. They're all very low capital, low infrastructure, low equipment, very low capital. Just give you a statistic. In America, in the U.S. right now, the average farm has $4 of depreciable capital infrastructure to turn $1 in annual gross sales. In other words, a farm that takes in $100,000 is going to have $400,000 in buildings and equipment. Here at Polyface, our ratio is 50 cents to a dollar.
Mm.
So that's an 800% difference in capital to cost. Another interesting statistic is that on the average farm, 50% of the cost is fuel, some sort of energy fuel, and ours is 10%. So, when you start looking at some of these things, so our big cost is labor,
Sure.
because we substitute labor intensity for capital, pharmaceutical, chemical intensity, building intensity. We substitute labor for that. So we can't necessarily produce it cheaper at the cash register, but it does mean that our money is tied up in our equity is tied up in management and skill and patrons rather than infrastructure. If you've got $1 million combine, how do you make an adjustment if you don't want to use it anymore? How do you make an adjustment if you've got a 5 pig houses, factory pig houses, and you decide you don't want to do pigs anymore? What do you do with a great big confinement pig house, hog house? And so our infrastructure often shackles us to a decision that grandpa made or dad made, way back there 30 years ago. And here we are 30, 40 years later, and we're still shackled to that decision that was made way, way back then. And of course, what happens when you feel shackled? You want to flee. You want to get out of there. And so, a lot of farm kids want to leave the farm because of that.
You have talked about regulations getting in the way so many times. Now, with a new administration about a year in, are you seeing progress on that? And what else gets in the way of people like you and people who've graduated through your program of succeeding as an independent producer?
Yeah, well, few things break my heart than one of our apprentice grads who goes and they start farming. They're being very, very successful. And then I call it the food police, come in and they don't have the right license or whatever, and suddenly they're put out of business. And those kind of things happen way more routinely than you might think. And so, are we in better shape now? Well, probably. I'm not a great big fan of Trump, but I'm a lesser fan of Kamala. All right. So, and so, yes, I'm glad Trump is in there, but the bureaucracy is so big that unraveling this, right now, for example, I can't, if a neighbor came to me and wanted a ribeye steak, I can't take a calf that I raised, birthed, and had here on the farm. I can't sell him a ribeye steak without exporting it from the county to a slaughterhouse in the next county and re-importing it. And so, so there are states that are doing food sovereignty laws. Wyoming has a really good one. Maine has a really good one. And what they're doing is anything that's not under the federal jurisdiction, like tomato soup, bakery. All right. They're making it very easy for folks. They're saying, hey, voluntary consenting adults exercising freedom of choice, enjoy the food transaction, have at it. Mm-hmm. But as soon as it comes to meat and poultry and dairy, that's where the federal comes in over the state, and the state can't get out from under that, that jurisdiction. So right now, I'm in fact, the first chapter, I just got it done this morning. I'm writing a book, my next book. This will be book number 18. And I've got the first chapter done this morning. And the title of the book is Food Emancipation. And I'm zeroing in on this issue because here's the thing. In the last 80 years, the farm gate value of the retail dollar, the farm gate percentage of the retail value has dropped from 50% to 8%. Think about that a minute. In other words, the retail price of all the food in the U.S. 80 years ago, the farmer got half of that retail dollar. Today, the farmer gets 8 cents on the dollar. That means we could have a new food policy that says from now on, farmers don't get anything. You just have to work for free. And it would only change the price of food 8 cents on the dollar. I mean, that's just, it's almost inconceivable. So in those 80 years, what's happened is not only, expanding regulatory intervention, but also the convenience food industry. 75% of all the food Americans eat now is processed convenience food. And so if the farmer is going to continue to stay viable in this new retail context, the farmer needs to be able to access the convenience food factor. In other words, we need to be able to make on-farm hot pockets. We need to make, be able to make chicken pot pie. We need to be able to make, bone broth with animals that are processed on the farm, where the farmer is able to become an entrepreneur and have a seat at the marketplace table for convenience food.
And doing that will then shrink that 50 cents to 8 cent gap?
Yes, yes. Because at our farm, we get about 80 cents on the dollar. I mean, we got to pay, obviously we got to pay the processor for, to get the beef done. If we could do that at home, we could get 100% of it. But we get 75, 80%. Well, that's a game changer. I mean, think about this. We service a restaurant here in Stanton that takes our chicken and makes a chicken pot pie. I don't know if I love chicken pot pie.
Same, definitely.
Shepherd's pie, chicken pot pie. All right. So they make this wonderful chicken pot pie in a cast iron skillet, comes to your table. I mean, and they have on the menu Polyface chicken pot pie.
Oh, nice.
And so we sell them a chicken for $20, and they make 15 chicken pot pies out of it, a quarter pound per meal, which is going to be roughly $400. Now, if we take off their labor, the vegetables, all that, and say they turn that chicken into $200, that's a tenfold. They're taking a $20 chicken, turn it into $200. All right. So you're a small farmer. You've got 10 acres. How much acreage, if you could get $200 a chicken, how many acres would you need to make a full-time living farming? Well, we run 600 chickens per acre on pasture. And so 600 chickens would be times 200 would be $120,000.
Mm-hmm. Just
with 600 chickens on 1 acre.
Right.
And so suddenly you create an opportunity for smallholders to enter the marketplace, and it does a lot of things. But another thing that it does is it chips away at the oligarchy. In 1990, which is not that far away, the 4 big beef packing companies, Tyson, Cargill, JBS, and American National, in 1990, they controlled 36% of the market. Today, they control 85%. Think about that. And so when people say, well, you got to have these, you got to have scale, you got to, all this, I think, look, nature does not increase with consolidation and centralization and concentration. Nature scales by duplication. If nature wants more tomatoes, it doesn't make a great big tomato plant. It plants more tomatoes. If we want more beef, we don't make a great big cow. We have calves. All right. And that's the way nature scales. It scales by duplication. And so what I'm hope everybody can understand is this is not suddenly, we can't feed the world. No. What you do is you bring in more players. You bring in more players, and suddenly you've got, food running out your ears.
So how do you get, if for the folks who are in this larger scale commodity side, now you already talked about people are so maybe hamstrung by the equipment, the machinery, right, the hog house, whatever they've got.
Right.
How do you turn that ship around to go try something else? Because that's an incredible investment and commitment and a liability they may have. So
Yeah.
how did they then pivot and go your way?
Yeah. Well, it ain't easy.
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to turn a speedboat around than an aircraft carrier.
For sure.
And so the bigger you are, the harder it is to make a change. However, we're back to incrementalism. I tell somebody of this in this situation, well, just start something new. Maybe it's a little quarter acre apple orchard. You know,
Hmm.
just start something different, start something new. And I do a lot of consulting where I go onto a farm and we work out other approaches. And one of the most satisfying ones I ever did was one in North Carolina. They had four turkey houses. I don't know whether they were, Purdue or Tyson or what they were, but anyway, they had four turkey houses, and this family wanted to make a transition. And we actually one of the things we did that day was to brainstorm all the things you could do with a turkey house, except raise turkeys.
Yeah.
And we had 25 money making things you could do with a turkey house, besides raise turkeys. And I'm happy to report that they're now 5 years in, and they're not debt free because they're still paying off, the last couple turkey houses, but they are full timing it. They are crushing it, doing great, and they were able to extricate themselves from that. So I can. It's not easy, but I've seen people do it. It can be done, but you have to be really perseverant and aggressive about making changes.
Can you say, without disclosing too much, can you say what they transitioned that turkey house to?
So I don't know what all they did. There's everything from mini storage to Montessori schools, Waldorf schools, nature schools, square dancing, event center, uh, dirt bike. Put some dirt ramps in there and have an indoor dirt track so you can have races even when it's raining outside. Uh, Flea markets. I can't remember all the things, but yeah, I mean they actually took an end of one and they made some worker housing in one, so they could have on farm employees um, in there. I have no idea if it was legal or not, but it was inside and nobody saw it.
Nobody saw it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's okay. But yeah, one of the most interesting things I did one year, I've gone to Australia numerous times, and when the wool market plummeted in Australia, when I was there, Australia had 3 years supply of the global wool market in inventory in Australia. So the market just collapsed, and they have all these sheep shearing sheds all over Australia. And I did a brainstorming. What can you do with a sheep shearing shed? And you'd be amazed at all the things that happen. An interesting one I ran into in British Columbia. There was a guy that had an old farm. He had an old barn. It was an old bank barn. What do I do with this? The thing is obsolete. And he went and put painted white plywood panels, hung them, and put track lighting all over this barn. And he does a juried art show once a year in like around Thanksgiving, and they sell everything they produce on their farm as concessions to the people who come to this thing. And they have like 30,000 visitors over 2 weekends come to this juried art show, and people buy the paintings and all this.
Hmm.
And in other words, it's juried in that you can't just, if you have a painting, you can't enter it. They want high quality. They want
Sure.
good stuff, and so that's what he did with his barn. And so I mean, there's just a ton of things that can be done that are as wide open as your imagination.
Uh, are people, I think I'm taken aback listening to how creative some folks have to be, but as an outsider, it also sounds overwhelming to me. I was sort of joking and asking if you had merch, and I should have known better that you would have found a way to tap into that market. But I mean, that takes an incredible amount of creativity and diversity when you're looking at so many different things, right? Like, how are you getting people through that?
Yeah. So the fact is that that creativity and people skills don't go on the average farmer's resume. Most farmers don't like people. I mean, that's one of the reasons they're farmers. And if you're going to get a retail dollar, if you're going to interface with the retail market, if you're actually going to create a brand, you need to interface with people. And most farmers, that petrifies them. You mean I've got to talk to, or people are going to come to my farm, whatever. I mean, we host about 12 to 15,000 visitors here a year at our farm. And guess what? They buy merch, they buy food, they pay for tours. I mean, we generate well, I don't know what, $40,000 a year just doing farm tours. We do 9 of them a year, and put a bunch of people on a hay wagon, and we go out through the field. And so there, once you start down this path, it just dominoes. And you listen to people. What do you need? What do you need? What do you want? And you respond to people's needs and wants. And so it just comes kind of naturally. Once the hardest climate, we talk about climate change, the hardest climate to change is the climate of the mind. If you can get the climate of the mind changed, there's no end to the things that you can do.
Fascinating. Really appreciate the conversation. Thank you for everything, and good luck on book number 18, right?
Yeah.
Boy, I was proud of myself for 2 books. I'm intimidated talking to you. I got my work cut out. I better get going.
Oh yeah, you're
A novice.
Lightweight. Yeah,
I am a without a doubt. Hey,
Yeah.
Joel, so nice to talk to you. Thanks for walking us through everything. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Joel Salatin, Farming His Way. You can learn more about Joel in our profile piece about him. It's in the American Farmland Owner weekly newsletter. It comes out on Fridays, or you can just get it emailed right to you. That's simple, and it's totally free. Check it out now at AmericanFarmlandOwner.com. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and thanks for caring about the future of our farmland.